Hi, welcome to Mom It Forward's Google Plus Hangout on Air tonight with Barilla Pasta. We're so excited to be sponsored tonight by Barilla Pasta because at Mom It Forward we partner family-friendly brands with parents and bloggers everywhere to learn more about family tips and tricks for raising kids with character. And we love Barilla Pasta because of their message, Share the Table, which helps families gather around the table and create meaningful mealtime moments together. So tonight we've got two guests with us, Fred from Mocha Dad and Vikki from Up Popped a Fox. So before we get started, just want to take a quick second. Fred, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for just a minute and tell us a little bit about your family.
Sure. My name is Fred Goodall. My wife and I have been married 17 years this year.
Whoa.
We have 3 children, a 13-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old son who will be 11 next month, and a 7-year-old son. He just turned 7 yesterday, so we're still celebrating his birthday. But yeah, we try and have dinner as much as we can together because we believe that's a very important part of our family's bonding time.
That's great, great. And Vikki, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my name's Vikki Reich, and my partner and I have been together 20 years, and we're just legally married 6 months ago.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have 2 kids, a 13-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl, and we are busy, busy, busy people, and both kids play soccer, do guitar, do martial arts. My partner travels, and so family mealtime really has been a way for us to maintain an important connection across all the craziness. So
that's great. That's great. Well, you know, like I said, I'm Jill, and I'm with Mom It Forward. And Mom It Forward is a blogger network that partners family-friendly brands with bloggers. And we like to partner with with brands that embrace family values and that really are about strengthening the family. And just to share a little bit about my family, in my family, I'm the odd man out or the odd woman out. I'm the only girl. I've got my husband, Troy, my 2 boys, Chase and Connor, who are 13 and 11, and then our dog, #the Super Beagle. And so,
nice.
you know, right here in a family full of boys, and we have just decided that regardless of what the meal looks like, it could be a quick sandwich or a delicious pasta meal, that we really do try to make an effort to get around that dinner table together, because we find that honestly it is the place where we laugh the very most. It just seems like, you know, there's no fights at the dinner table type of a thing. We love it. So it's really great to have you guys here with us tonight and to have Barilla be behind this Share the Table message. So we want to take a minute to talk about some things about getting around getting around the table together as a family, because it's not always easy. So Fred, why don't you go first and help us know, how do you see interactions in your family change as you make family meals more meaningful? And then secondly, what does meaningful mean to you?
Well, I'll start with meaningful first.
Great.
I think it gives us a time to really connect, to really talk, and to really get to know one another, because as you said, our lives can be so busy. The kids have all kinds of activities. I have work. My wife has work. We have social commitments. We have volunteer commitments. So we're running around all the time. And we don't always get a chance to have conversations or to just slow down and relax and enjoy one another. But our meal times give us that opportunity. So we can sit down and talk, we can sit down and relax, we can sit down and laugh, like you said. We have so many great laughs at the dinner table. And it's just really kind of a relaxing spot in the middle of a very, very busy day. Something that we can all look forward to, because we know at a specific time every night, we're all going to come together, and we make a serious effort to not allow anything else to get in the way of our dinner time, because we all realize the importance of it. So we all know that at a specific time every night we will get together, we will enjoy one another, and you know, sometimes we just let it linger, and we may have dinner, we may have some dessert together, and afterwards maybe we'll play a game together or watch a movie together. But we try and extend that time as much as we can because we know it's so precious.
What I really like about what you're saying and what I can really relate to, Fred, is, talking about how, our busy lives really can, kind of tear us apart a little bit. Not in, not in a bad way, really, because we need to be growing and doing different things and such. Right. But the dinner is really kind of, like you were saying, a way to relax, kind of almost like an oasis in the middle of the day.
Correct.
So, and I love that, how you're talking about lingering after dinner. When, when dinner is great and mealtime moments are fabulous, it's like you don't want to leave, right?
Right.
Right, that's great. Well, Vikki, what about you? What makes mealtime meaningful for your family?
Well, I think one of the challenges that we have is that we both work from home. And I think the boundaries between work and family can get really blurred. And the thing that I love most about our dinner time rituals is it really is kind of a set thing, like, okay, now it's dinner and work is done for now. And it really is a way to kind of structure our family time so that we can separate the two, because it is hard to work at home and have the kids around, and it's so tempting to pick up that cell phone and respond to the email and do that kind of thing, and it's such a slippery slope. And so family real time really gives us that opportunity to say, nope, right now this is what we're doing, and it encourages us to really be present with our kids and with each other, and set an example too for what we want family to mean to them.
I love that, because I work from home as well, and sometimes those boundaries are kind of hard. And so I know for me, I keep my computers in my office all the time, because I get too kind of tempted to hop back on, and then those lines kind of are blurred. But I get what you're saying about that family mealtime kind of has those, those boundaries, and boundaries, borders, right, and kind of structure that helps the family know what they can count on when they're getting together, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, one thing that I thought has been interesting over the course of the years is, now my children are 13 and 11. But since they were little, they always liked to help prepare the meal together. And maybe it was as simple as, hey, Chase, go bring me a tomato. Or, hey, if we're doing dessert, why don't you separate these chocolate candies into different bowls according to their colors, or whatnot. But, having all the family members involved in helping prepare the meal can really be a great precursor to enjoying a great meal, and also make it a safe place to talk about really key topics. What types of topics? Well, that's two kinds of questions there, Fred, so sorry to spring that on you, but the first thing is, how do you prepare meal as a family? Who kind of plays what roles? And then how do you use that time, both preparing the meal and sitting down together, to really address those key topics as a family?
Right. As far as preparing the meals, pretty much during the week, on weekdays, my wife usually prepares the meals. And on weekends, I prepare the meals. we often try to get the kids involved, but that's been a bit of a challenge, because my middle son is really the only one who really wants to help me any meal preparation. My teenage daughter, she just kind of like, whatever, just call me when dinner's ready. And I'll come.
She's busy being 14.
Exactly.
13.
And my 7-year-old, he gets a bit interested, but he's so easily distracted. I go get me a tomato, and 10 minutes later he comes back with some Legos. What are you doing? Oh yeah, I was supposed to get a tomato. But it's very important to get them involved. I remember one incident. We were having dinner, and I had made some chicken for dinner, and my daughter, who's not much with tact, says, this chicken tastes terrible. Just matter-of-factly. Okay, I'm glad I have thick skin and I'm not easily offended. But after that, I decided that I'm going to get her to help with the dinner preparation, because if she has to cook it and she has some investment in the dinner, then she can't easily complain about it. She has to eat it. Like, hey, you made it, so now you have to eat it. So that's really helped to make them appreciate what goes into cooking a meal, and they don't take that for granted, because they realize that it's a lot of work, and it doesn't just magically appear on the table. Someone has to put some effort into it. But when we finally get a meal to the table, You know, we do try and have some meaningful conversations. One rule that we try to have, though, is like really serious or sensitive topics. We don't want to talk about those at the dinner table. If someone brings up something that's a bit sensitive, my wife and I'll make a note of it. We won't expand on it, but we'll talk to the specific child. Hey, later tonight in your room, we want to talk about this a little bit more, because we don't want any stress or any strife going on at the dinner table. But we want to let them know we've acknowledged what you've said, but we want to take this into a different situation and cover it in a different way. So we try and have meaningful conversations that aren't stressful, but allow us to delve into our children's lives and share parts of our lives with them.
You know, I love that in the sense that I think that when we create a safe space for our families and when we're eating together, a lot of times kids can bring stuff up because they just feel that safety.
Right.
But again, like what you're saying, sometimes that might not be the right time to really expound on that topic.
Right.
But as long as they feel heard and they know that it's going to be
Yes.
addressed at a later time,
Right.
it's awesome that they felt comfortable in the first place even
Right.
coming to you, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, that's great. Vicki, what about you?
Well, my kids have watched way too much Chopped lately, and so the idea of them actually helping me prepare a meal or helping my partner prepare a meal is just not at all interesting to them, because they want their basket of ingredients and they want to do their own thing. So, you know, if they can't make some elaborate thing, then they're just not interested, which is not always a practical thing.
That's
Yeah.
great, though.
I mean, and I appreciate the sentiment, if not the mess that they leave behind. But really, so some of the time, the way we focus on getting them involved is less about that and more about planning meals. Kind of in the same vein like Fred, it's harder for them to complain about what they're eating when they had a chance, even if they chose not to use it, to actually
Right.
have input into what you're having. And so we do sit down and plan our meals for the week, and we vary that according to what activities or what nights, and whether it needs to be quicker or we can take more time. And we ask for their input and try to get them involved that way. And then, you know, instead of the cooking, we try to involve them with, you know, setting the table, clearing the table, that sort of thing. And, you know, when we all got together and talked about the Share the Table program, and Dr. Doherty was telling us that, you know, kids and families that also share cleanup tend to report a higher valued experience of mealtime. So we decided our kids were going to start doing dishes. And I would not say that they would report and support Dr. Doherty's findings, but there's not a lot of happiness about the dishes. But it's also a good way for us to show appreciation for them too. Like, you know, we really appreciate this. This helps us. This adds to our family because you're doing something for all of us. And I think, you know, that value eventually will help. And as far as the conversations that we have at dinner, we really do talk just about anything. And we talk about politics, and we talk about current events and world happenings, or, you know, who threw a rock at the playground, and who fell off the swing and broke their wrist. And I mean, you know, the day-to-day stuff. And then we try to inject a little bit of current events in there too, because we want them to be good global citizens, and we want them to be aware of their privilege, and no better time to do that than when you're all sitting in kind of a neutral environment.
I love how you're talking about, you know, that mealtime is more than just bonding. It's more than just eating as a family together. It's also about education. It's about gratitude. I mean, really, it's, you know, it's both a learning and a character building time for your family, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well, and I
great.
think it's a time when, whether we intend to or not, we do pass on our values, our family values, to our kids, because they see what's important enough for us to talk about, or what's important enough for us to prioritize in our family, and that's, I mean, that's how they learn.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. You know, and one of, you know, in the chat, in the feed on Google Plus, we've got Tony that made a really great comment where she's talking about, you know, Vicki, you were talking about preparing meals together as a family, and Tony shared also that she loves, and well, and her family love to listen to music or sing as the family is preparing the meal together, and that this is one of the ways that they can, you know, even before they sit down, that they can get really excited and have a really fun time together. So I think, just like you were saying, Vikki, that preparation time is a really great time to be able to start forming those bonds that then carry over to, you know, kind of the table. And Fred, as you were saying earlier, even can linger longer with a game or a movie afterwards. So, yeah. You know, but sometimes, as much as we all love to get around the table, sometimes, maybe it's just a day or two, maybe it's a phase of life, the kids just aren't interested, or maybe they're going through a quiet phase. So what are some tips that you each have for, A, getting your family around the dinner table together and getting the kids excited about it, and B, keeping that conversation going, or even just engaging all the kids in conversation? Vikki, why don't we have you go first this time?
Well, you know, one of my grand plans for this summer, the idea being of getting the kids more involved in meal preparation and the food that we were actually having, was that I started a garden. And before I had kids, I was a horrible gardener, but I would try, and I'd grow basil and tomatoes and that kind of thing. And as soon as we had kids, I let it all go by the wayside, because really, dirt and weeds, I'm just not into it.
Just one more thing, right?
No, it's one more thing to maintain. You know, but this year I thought, you know, the kids are old enough now that maybe they'll actually help, and wouldn't that be awesome? And they did. They helped me plant. We planted tomatoes and basil, essentially so we could make caprese salad for my daughter. It's her favorite thing, and pesto. And then we were going to have this incredible experience of eating this food, and then we had the worst growing season ever. And so I haven't, my grand plan hasn't literally or figuratively borne fruit yet. However, someday those tomatoes may ripen. And but again, it's that part of involving them somehow in the food itself, you know, and whether it's input into what you have, or literally into the preparation, or in this grand plan that failed, in actually growing the food yourself. But I think any time that you can kind of give them some power, that, you know, kids rise to that kind of challenge, and they really appreciate when we put that kind of trust in them.
Well, and I think there's something to be said about just giving those more and more opportunities to bond. While we may look at it as part of a process, our kids are not looking at it as part of a process. Yeah, they're looking at it as individual opportunities. I remember when I was young, I was like, I think 8, and my dad decided he was going to, you know, grow his very first garden. And so, you know, there were 3 kids at the time, and he said, you each can have your own row. And I planted an entire row of radishes. And I'm like 8 years old, and what am I going to do with all these radishes? But I will never forget that experience, because to me, every time I see radishes to this day, it reminds me of my dad and our time in the garden. And he didn't even know what he was doing. I mean, he had never done it before, but it was just that time. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and I have great memories of, you know, I didn't have a lot of time with my mom because she was a single mom and she had to work a lot, but I have great memories of snapping green beans with her, you know, from my uncle's garden, because she didn't have her own, but we would go over there and pick. So, you know, you can build so many memories, not just at the table, but around anything that you do before or after.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Fred, what about you? Creative ways to get your kids to love coming to the dinner table when maybe they don't want to.
Well, we do a thing around our table called Roses and Thorns, and this is a way to get them to get beyond the one-word answers and to really express themselves. Each person has to go around the table and tell us about one rose that happened that day, and a rose is anything that's good that happened that day. And they have to expand on that and tell us why it was good, why they like that. And the thorn is something that didn't quite go so well that day, and we talk about those as well. But the bottom line for the whole thing is you have to have more roses than thorns, because we want dinner time to be a positive experience. So they have to think about what's positive in their lives. And that's really given us an opportunity to see what's going on at school, to understand what they're dealing with at school. What are some of the things they like throughout the day? What are some of the things that disappoint them and make them upset or make them sad? It gives us a lot of insight into what they're dealing with, and it also lets us really see how they cope with things, and their perspective on what they consider to be good or bad in their lives. Sometimes my daughter will say, "Oh, I dropped my backpack today, and that was the worst thing that happened." She just feels so horrible about that. But sometimes the situations are more serious. Maybe that she has some conflict with one of her friends that she didn't really know how to cope with. So kind of help her to deal with that and talk her through some ways to cope with it and reestablish that relationship. But it really gives us a chance to talk and expand on things. My wife and I do it too. My 7-year-old son, when we don't do it, sometimes we forget. Like, hey, what about roses and thorns? So yeah, we got to do that. We got to make sure that's done. So they get excited about it, and it's something that they are really engaged with.
We've done also compliments and thank yous at times, so you have to thank someone or compliment someone for something, and but that can easily fall into, I'd like to thank myself for being awesome. Often my daughter's response.
Right.
Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. You just have to try either a different day or a different way to go, but yeah.
But again, what I hear both of you talking about is not just teaching skills about how to communicate and giving opportunities for connection, but is also really about raising kids with character, teaching kids to be positive and to find ways to turn a negative into a positive, ways to complement each other and find the good in each other. That just goes more and more toward creating a safe space. So now each family kind of has some differences, right? We have all got like unique challenges with our kids or with ourselves or whatever. Vikki, why don't you start by talking about some of, maybe just even one way that you kind of tailor mealtime, or you have in the past, to kind of maybe some issues, I don't want to say challenges necessarily, but some different things that your family faces that's maybe unique to your family.
Well, one of the things that, and I've written about this before, but one of the things that was really incredibly powerful for us as a family around mealtime was it really was a time for us to talk about the marriage equality issue that was going on here in Minnesota. And there was actually, before equality, there was an anti-marriage amendment here. And we were really concerned a lot about what the kids might be hearing at school, if they were going to be getting bullied or made fun of or taking on that fight, which is not their fight to take, Yeah.
So a really kind of sensitive but important issue for your family.
Right, and so we had those conversations at dinner time, and that was really a time for us to check in and say, how'd the day go? Are you hearing anything? How are you feeling about things? And, we were very lucky because they didn't experience anything horrible, but it was such a powerful place for us to make it normal, to just have those conversations, and it didn't take on some epic kind of feel. It was like we're just chatting at dinner, and this is something we're facing, and it's going to happen, and whatever it is, we'll deal with it, but let's just be open. And it was, I think, a really great time for our kids to feel safe. And I think that whatever your family's struggles are, or whatever your kids' struggles are, or anything that you face, I think that's one of the powerful things about family mealtime is it is a safe space. It creates that within your home and within your family. And it's so great for kids to have that.
And I think what's interesting about what you're sharing and important is very different than what Fred was sharing earlier, in the sense that you want to be able to talk about sensitive issues and tough issues, but where Fred was talking about one issue that maybe involved one child, and maybe then taking that offline and, and talking one-on-one, if the issue is sensitive and important to the entire family, that the table really is a great way to broach that topic and to feel like you're all in it together, and that you can have safe conversations, in a really great environment, right, where people can ask and answer questions.
Right, and then it became just something that we did. It was like a check-in during that time period, like, how's it going? Did anything come up today? How are you guys feeling? And I think that was really nice for them. And we were, like I said, fortunate nothing ever came of it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, Fred, what about you? Any ways or experiences that you've really needed to tailor your mealtime moments for specific things that you guys have either faced or even fun things? I mean, just anything that's unique to your family?
Well, I just want everybody to know, and I just want to make everyone feel as if it's okay to not have perfect meals every time.
Please.
I don't want anyone to think that every mealtime is perfect, because quite honestly, mealtime can be quite stressful. You just have to try and figure out what to cook every night, make sure it's something that everyone wants to eat. You have to make sure you have the time and everyone gets together at the same time, coordinating everybody's schedule. So there's a lot of stress that goes into this. Actually, the last time Vikki and I were together, she may not know this, but she actually helped me to cope with the dinner time issue that I was dealing with. I mean, it's mainly around the timing, because we had set our dinner time at 6:30. So every night I was focused on dinner time is 6:30. It has to be 6:30. You know, that was stressful every night, trying to get home or have a meal done by 6:30, because 6:30 comes quickly every night. So I was focused on that, and you know, I was getting stressed out. My family's getting stressed out, and then Vikki said, you know, it's okay to move dinner time back. If you have dinner time at 8, that's fine, or 9 o'clock. And you know, the light bulb suddenly went up. Like, you're right. Like, why am I so stressed on this specific time? We can have dinner anytime. So once I changed that mindset, for me, a lot of stress lifted.
So maybe like kind of being flexible and giving yourself a break and doing it, you know, at a time, or just, you know, maybe shifting from here and there so that it works for your family. Right. Cutting yourself some slack is those are great tips.
Exactly.
Well, I think that we can all fall into that trap where it's all or nothing. Like, we have to do it perfectly, or what's the point? And you know, my family wouldn't be able to we wouldn't be able to have family dinner time if we had to have it at the same time every day. Sometimes we have it at 5:30, and sometimes we have it at 8, because that's when soccer's done for both kids. And you know, I agree with Fred that it's, you know, our family meal times are not perfect, and sometimes, oh goodness.
We just have to give ourselves a break and try our best, right? Well, I want to go for a second to our great listeners and viewers, because they're giving us some really great feedback. And Tiffany shares that you know, that for her a great way to get the kids to the table is making dishes that they love. And I really like this. I know that, you know, sitting down and creating a grocery list and involving the kids in, okay, so what does our meal plan look like for the week? And really making sure that whether it's a side dish or the main meal or even just the dessert, involving them in those decisions and getting their buy-in, and you know, and having a few surprises for them with things that they love can really help them. So that's a great comment from Tiffany. And Kara went back to the gardening that you were sharing about, Vikki, and talked about how each of her boys, she has 4 boys, and they each have a garden box, and they choose the plants that they want to grow. So she really, from a young age, helps them get really excited about gardening, which then can carry over into mealtime. So I thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else has any comments, we'd love to hear them. And now we've arrived at the time. We're almost done, but before we get done, we have one more question, but first a giveaway. So this is a really great prize pack tonight from Barilla. And for those of you who haven't tried Barilla pasta, I mean, it is so great and healthy, and it's just amazing, and their sauces are great too. So this prize pack includes, I need to look at it over here. It has so much stuff. It's like a big basket full of stuff, and it's about $125 value. And it has balsamic vinegar, peeled cherry toms, organic extra virgin olive oil, has a really great pasta book. Who doesn't want that? And then it has some coupons for pasta and pasta sauce. So if you haven't tried Barilla, or even if you have and you love it, then you can go and use the coupons to get some savings there. And then it also includes, let me see, yeah, it includes a couple of different kinds of pasta. So it's basically almost like a pasta kit per se, so that you can then create some family meals together using that pasta. So in terms of the giveaway, what we need you to do is chat in the thread on Google Plus and leave a comment that answers the question, what would be your favorite part of this prize pack if you were to win it? And again, in the prize pack, you've got balsamic vinegar, olive oil, 2 different kinds of pasta, cherry tomatoes, and some coupons. So just share what would be your favorite thing that you would win if you were to win this prize pack, and how would you use it with your family to create mealtime moments together. Okay, we'll let you guys be doing that while we answer the last question, which is, how can parents get past the one-word answers? You all know it, and Fred talked about it earlier with the roses and the thorns, but how can you get past those with your kids without shutting down the conversation? I've got boys that are 13 and 11, and they are such perfectionists about this, or they've perfected the art of the one-word answer. So Fred and Vikki, starting with you, Fred, how do you get past the one-word answers?
And you have to talk about things that your kids are interested in. You know, for my son, my 10-year-old son, if I mention Pokemon, man, he'll start going on and on and on for hours. Or my daughter, if I talk about some type of music, she loves music, so we'll talk about that. My 7-year-old, he doesn't have any problem with one-word answers. I wish he would. I wish he would. One-word answers.
I've got one of those.
But really, it's really about showing interest in what your children are doing, showing interest in their lives, and just drawing it out of them. And sometimes it's not easy. You're gonna have to endure those one-word answers until suddenly the thing just snaps and it clicks with them, and they'll just start becoming an overflowing fount of information. And the other things parents have to realize is we have to be aware of how we listen to our children. And we have to actively listen to them and make sure that they understand that we really are listening to them, because sometimes we get busy and consumed with our own things that, you know, maybe like they're trying to tell us something like, yeah, I'm listening, but actually we're not. So we have to really listen and focus on them so that they will be more inclined to share more details with us.
Great answers. And Vikki, what about you? How do you stop the one-word answers or open that conversation up to encourage more discussion?
Well, I think that, you know, my son would talk nonstop. So, I mean, actually one of our challenges is to slow his roll and kind of let my daughter have a voice so that she can be heard as well. But she tends towards the simple answers. And one of the things that I do is I try to use humor and say, I'm going to need a little more than that. You know, I'm going to need a little more than that. And if you do it with a light touch, a lot of times that will kind of shake something loose too. You know, and one of the struggles because of the quiet versus the loud kids that we have is, and this actually came from my daughter, is that we're going to each write down some topics that we like to talk about, and we're going to put them in a little basket. And then each time we're feeling stuck, we're going to draw something that we can all talk about so that somebody doesn't dominate the conversation and it's something that we can all participate in.
Okay, that's great. And those tips, you know, from both of you, Fred and Vikki, and just really everything that you've shared tonight has really been so beneficial and just giving me some food for thought. I know that, you know, at our dinner table, one of the tips, you know, we've got these 2 boys again, and they, like I said, are just masters of the one-word answer, both of them. And we practice at every mealtime going around the table, and we call it the question game. And at first, we had conversation cards that had different questions on them. And so, you know, everyone would choose a card, and then they'd ask the question on the card, and then we'd go around the table and answer the question. But then we moved on and we said, okay, now it's, you know, everybody has to practice asking a question. And it can be whatever you want as long as it doesn't require a one-word answer. So it's been interesting over time to see them develop that skill of being able to really ask that question and be excited about something, engaged, and then, you know, really be listening to the rest of the, you know, of the family. And then as my oldest son has gotten into middle school, you know, just being challenged with how do I now start a conversation with people. He's pretty shy. but that game has really come in handy. And I said, you know, this game that we play at dinner table is the same thing that you need to do with the kids in middle school. And, you know, the light went off in his head, and he just went, oh my gosh, that's not hard at all. So I think the things that we do teach our kids, you know, around the table, whether it's talking about important issues, you know, sensitive topics that are unique to our family, laughing, playing games, you know, lingering longer like Fred was talking about, all of those types of things really help develop our children into the responsible adults that they need to be, you know, and with a really strong family connection to ground them. So thank you so much, Fred and Vikki, for joining the conversation tonight, and for sharing, you know, just your great background, having worked as ambassadors for Barilla, and their message of share the table. And we'd like to encourage all of you out there who are watching and listening, or who will watch in the future, to get around the table with your family and make some mealtime moments together, sharing the table as a family. So we are going to announce our giveaway winner. Again, that wonderful Barilla prize pack. And thank you so much for everybody who entered. The winner tonight is Karen Kilby Clark. So thank you, Karen, for answering and for doing that. We had a couple of, you know, just a really some great answers from all of you. And we're excited to be reading the thread more and to learning tips from those of you going forward. Tonight we'll go ahead and sign off and let you go, and just say, go enjoy mealtime moments together as a family, and share them on social media using the hashtag #ShareTheTable. Good night, everyone.
Good night, and thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.